I needed to find a way to handle the amount of customers that I had. So I started telling them to meet me in the store. I knew a couple of key things: discounted items and layaways are the two things that needed to be approved by managers. So I know, just come in there, just say you want to put this on layaway. Say a living room set, I know you mean pills. If you say bedroom set, I know you mean coke. And I just started categorizing different vignettes.
Pete Polis grew up on Long Island, the son of an NYPD detective with dreams of making it big in baseball. He did just that, playing for the Blue Jays, White Sox, and Yankees before walking away from the game. After a stint as a pastor, he took a job at a furniture store and secretly built an intricate drug operation out of the back, eventually working with a cartel. It all came crashing down when he got caught and was sentenced to 4 years in federal prison. Today, Pete's sober and running a recovery house, and this is the unbelievable story of how a pro ball player turned drug trafficker found redemption. Pete, welcome to Locked In, man. Thanks so much for coming today.
Thanks for having me, Ian.
You have an incredible story. I think you're our second ever baseball type story on the podcast, and the first one was the Danny Collins one I was telling you about.
Yeah.
Everyone loved it. And you just have a very interesting story. I think the audience is really going to love it.
I appreciate it. I went through a lot, I can tell you that.
Yeah, but at least you're positive about it now, you know? It would be one thing to go through a lot and not learn from it and be miserable, but you went through a lot and you're positive about it, and you know, you're upbeat. You're not down in the dumps.
It takes just as much energy to be positive as it does negative.
Yeah, absolutely. Before we get rolling, I want to tell you about Magic Mind. Magic Mind's one of the sponsors of our show, and this is a matcha energy performance shot. So I take these before every interview. Got them stocked up in the studio out here.
Is it a little toaster you do?
Yeah, if you'd like to have one, we'd love for you to have one too. The cool thing about this is I see you got a coffee there. You can have it with coffee, so it doesn't replace necessarily the coffee. It's just an extra performance shot. Gives you mental clarity. Doesn't leave you with like that hangover like some energy drinks do. So they're good. And have you ever had matcha?
I have not, but I'm about to try it with you.
Yeah, they're best served cold too, and it's so good. I like it.
Salud.
Yeah, cheers. What do you think?
Tastes pretty good.
Yeah, I like it. I'll send you some home. We got a bunch.
Yeah.
We've been working with Magic Mind for over almost 2 years now, and I love their product. It's really good.
I actually looked into in New York. I went to a CBD store. I've been almost 6 years clean, so I can't have anything with THC, but they had something called Neuro, and it was for like clarity.
Yeah.
But I mean, it didn't work. So.
Well, now you got a new thing that will work.
We'll find out.
We'll give you some more to take home with you. I always get DMs from people asking, hey, does it really work? And I'm like, yeah, it keeps me focused. You know, it's really good, and just gives you that mental clarity. And the listeners of the show can get 50% off going to magicmind.com using, it's magicmind.com/IanB50 for 50% off, and we'll have that direct link in the description of this.
So I mean, the clients get 75% off.
No, they get 50% off, but I'm happy to hook them up with the supply I have here. Yeah. And they're best served cold too, so definitely have it cold if you do get the Magic Mind. But
I'll definitely give it a try.
Yeah, big shout out to Magic Mind for sponsoring today's episode with these. So, Pete, where are you from? Where did you grow up?
New York. I grew up born in Mount Vernon, but I grew up on Long Island, New York.
And
Levittown.
What was your upbringing like?
I can't say it was normal, but I had grew up son of a detective. My dad was a cop in the city, and very focused on baseball my whole life. We had one little thing we did as a father-son. We used to go into the bigger clubs around the area and dumpster dive. Believe it or not, we used to go in there and get the bottles. And I'm not joking you, Ian. To this day, my dad's 86. He still collects bottles. It is what it is. But we used to collect them every Friday, Saturday, and Sunday.
What kind of detective was he?
In New York City, he was walking the beat, walking the streets and stuff like that. But he did that for about 17 years, and then he got into an accident and had both his hips, broken and replaced, and his knees, and just gave it up and went into private security. But that's really opposite of what I did, obviously. But he played baseball when he was younger. I know he got the potential to get drafted when he was 16, but at those times you need a parental signature, like consent to do that. And his mother didn't want him to play, so she said, get a real job, go become a cop. So I mean, better watch the words that are spoken over you, because it did come true. I mean, it was good for him. But me, I just did that. I focused on baseball. I know we went to the different clubs and stuff like that. And I know one day while we were collecting bottles, I had a gentleman come out, nice 3-piece suit, and, kindly asked me what the hell I was doing in his dumpster. I'm obviously collecting bottles, but it wasn't his dumpster. I said, hey, it's not your dumpster. And he said, hey, come out here. Put his arm around me. I know my dad freaked out. He thought he was some kind of pedophile, but he wasn't. And just offered me a job, just to be outside of his club each day after school. And I was just going to sweep the cigarette butts. He owned a club on Long Island. And so I started doing that for about 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And then after school, I'd go there and I would just help stock the bars before it opened up. And did that for many years. So it was a nice bunch of guys. They winded up funding me as far as my baseball teams are concerned. They sponsored all my Little League teams when I played. Involved with that. So just baseball and that, really. But baseball winded up paying for my education. I wound up getting I still got a home run record in high school. Believe it or not. Last time I checked, they sent me the jersey, and it was supposed to retire the number. But still to this day, it holds. But I wound up getting a 5-year full scholarship to New York Tech. Was
your mom in the picture?
Yeah, my mom was in the picture. Just a supportive mom. Went to every single game, yelled at me and scolded me. I say her out of all respect. She passed away last September, so she's not able to see this, but she was able to see a rebound. So I went down a little bit of a dark path for a while that she wasn't very happy of. But yeah, she was there every game.
What did she do for work growing up?
I think she worked. I know for a while she was just a stay-at-home mom, but she raised 3 kids, and I was a handful. So she was driving me all over the place. But she wound up working for this high school that I played for in the office, administrative work and whatnot, attendance.
How do you compare in age to your siblings?
2 years difference between my oldest and 4 years for the first.
Girls or boys?
Both girls. I was the only boy.
So you were the only sports guy.
My middle sister played a little bit, softball and stuff like that, but as far as, getting involved with it on a professional level, yeah. And I was the youngest.
So because you were the only boy, did that mean you and your dad were closer? Did you automatically gravitate towards your dad and vice versa?
I think everyone gravitates to dad. Yeah. It was a rough, and I say this, he's still alive, he'll probably see this. It was a rough upbringing because of the expectations that were laid upon me. You have to be the best.
For baseball?
Oh, yeah.
Do you think
Absolutely.
He pushed you that hard because he didn't get to fulfill his dreams of baseball?
100%. I just think, I say that, he lived vicariously through me, but 100%. When you get to where you almost want to be and you don't get there, and then you have a son that has more ability than you want to see that.
But do you enjoy it? Were you happy doing that?
I enjoyed it for a while. But it got to the point where it was exhausting as far as getting on the level and being, so you have to perform. Sometimes just to get the affirmation from a parent, It's just, it is tough. And I'll say that, I've always said that, it's just tough. If you do great, you have a supportive, parent. If you don't, you're looked upon,
How would you describe your personality in high school?
I was always loud. I'm not going to say class clown. I did graduate. I know in college I wound up getting a 3.26 GPA. So I was smart, but I was very erratic. Thoughts all over the place, I couldn't stick with one thing. I start a project and I have to finish. Baseball is the one thing that I stayed with and focused on and did. Later on in life, I realized I'm all over the place. But yeah, I couldn't sit still. Hard to sit still in school.
Do you feel like you missed out on a lot in your childhood because of baseball?
No, I don't think I missed out on a lot. I had a good childhood. I think I mean, there was many decisions that I made that would have altered later on in life. I know for a fact. I mean, I was, I think in 1988, I was invited to Junior Olympics. If you do good with the Junior Olympics, you get invited to the Big Olympics. And I had a great series, and I was invited. I don't know if it was out of the country. I know that. And I was invited to represent the East. And I said no because I missed my home. It was a dumb decision, but it was a decision I stuck by. I don't regret it because everything in my life would have altered with that. Because I believe anybody who goes to the Major Olympics can write their ticket. From then on out, they can write their ticket to any professional baseball team they want.
What were some morals your dad instilled in you as a kid?
If you're going to do it, give you everything you got. And I mean everything. Like, we would wake up from the time we woke up in the morning, if he was off work, to the time the sun went down, it was baseball. It was baseball, baseball, baseball. And I don't regret that because it taught me, how to handle everything else from then on. Anything I start, I know I can succeed. They say if you can make it in New York, you can make it anywhere. But it's the truth. It really is. If you can make it in professional sports, I don't know the percentages exactly, but I know less than 1% ever get drafted. And we're not talking big leagues. We're just talking about getting drafted. 8 billion people, less than 1% get drafted. So that means you have to be in the upper echelon of people to be drafted. So that takes a lot of discipline, a lot of hard work, hours and hours of hard work.
What did he teach you about following the law and the law in general?
Well, to follow the law, I was a little bit of a rebel, growing up as far as like when I was in high school. I know I snuck to the bleachers and went to drink, and he caught me a bunch of times and warned me. But I knew my relationship with him. He can warn me all I wanted, but as long as I played, I know I'd have the grace. So I did that. But he always taught me just follow the law. Even when I was with that family that I worked for at the club, it's common sense to know they're organized crime, but I wasn't involved in that. But I was around. I was a little gopher kid. I was, ran card games, gave people drinks, go in to get a sandwich, deliver mail, just stuff like that. But follow the law. And he was that way. He actually had a mob boss one day that fell and hurt himself, and he helped him to the hospital. And the guy came back, and he owned a furniture store, I guess, and he said, "Hey, take whatever you want here," and he didn't do it, because it was wrong. So he followed the law 100%.
Would he share stories from the job, like kind of like the more tragic aspects of the job, or?
100%. With me, yes. Yeah. We used to have this time where he would bring back, if he was studying a case, and he would lay out pictures of the crime scene, and he'd ask, "Hey, what do you think happened here?" There was times that you see people's legs going through a telephone pole because of an accident. It's like, what do you think happened here? What do you think this person, this homicide, what do you think, how long do you think they were dead for compared to the bloating and the discoloration? And it was fun to me. It's probably gross to a lot of people, but it was time with my dad, which is what I wanted, aside from baseball, because he coached me too. By the way, I didn't think I added that in. Every team up until high school, he coached. So I got it at home and on the field.
When he's telling you aspects about the job, are you thinking in your mind, yeah, I'm never going to get into trouble, and this is going to keep me on the straight and narrow, and I'm just, everything's going to work out well in life?
No, I got in trouble, but I just knew how to handle myself if I got in trouble. I did learn that from him.
But in trouble to the point where you would end up in prison?
The one time I got caught stealing. I don't know if it was Nintendo at the time, it was Atari or something like that. But I went to Toys R Us, and I winded up going down an aisle and sticking a bunch of. There was a racetrack set. Well, I cleared out racetrack set. I put a bunch of video games in the box and went to go pay for the racetrack with all the games in there, and I got caught. And I almost pissed my pants, to be honest with you. But they knew him, so they called him, and he came over to me, and that scared me straight for a little bit. That was the one time that I got in trouble with the law, up until when I got in trouble later on in life.
Tell us about college. going to play baseball in college?
College was cool. I mean, I came on and had a real good college career. I don't think I played my first year because I had someone playing before me, and he was graduating. So I started really playing the end of my freshman year and sophomore, junior. It was we played Division A, so we played against Texas Longhorns, University of Miami. We traveled, and I think I was I'm not sure, you can look it up, but I think it was close to 300 average during baseball. And in 91, I wound up, my junior year, I got drafted by the Toronto Blue Jays. And I know when I got drafted, I wasn't going to take it because there's a 40-something round. And, I mean, it's not great, but it's not bad either. So I said, I'm just going to play my senior year. And I think the guy's name was Neil Sumner, the scout. At that time, he's at my house, and my high school coach was with me along with my college, and he put down a local newspaper that said the college went bankrupt and dropped the baseball team. So I didn't have a baseball team to go back to my senior year. So they made some phone calls, and they found UNLV and Texas Longhorns and University of Miami. They were going to pick up my scholarship, but I would have to redshirt a year because I believe like Charles Johnson Jr. and Jason Varitek were playing at this. I'm not going to outdo those guys. Those guys made it to big leagues. So I'd have to redshirt a year and hopefully have a good year, one past mine. So I didn't want to do that. I took the money they gave me and signed and with the Blue Jays and headed off to spring training with the Blue Jays.
What was the starting offer for that?
Gosh, it was a multi-type offer. I think it was only a few $1,000s to sign, but it also included a per diem to eat. Housing was paid for. Townhouses were paid for in spring training and in Canada. It was kind of like, I don't know what that would cost, all that together, but I didn't pay for anything. I got cash and was paid to play. That's all I thought about was, hey, something I played my whole entire life, now they're paying me to play, which is kind of a cool thought.
And this was the actual pro team, not a team. I know some of these teams have like minor league teams under them.
No, those are minor league teams.
Okay.
Yeah. So you don't when you get drafted, you don't go to big leagues. You start out at single A, then you go double A, triple A. A lot of people make the jump from double A to the bigs. A lot of the triple A are people in the big leagues. If they get hurt or rehabbing, they go down to triple A. But a lot of people from single A and double A jump to the bigs if they have a good enough year. But I mean, I seem to find trouble, and I did. I had a few different really good opportunities when I was with the Blue Jays, and I kind of found a little trouble. I got into a fight in 1 year in a bar in Medicine Hat, Alberta, and it was over something stupid. Ian. It was just, I was so vain, and thought I was better than everybody. I think I had a girl come to me and try to give me a rose, and say that that she liked me playing. She was with a boyfriend, and I was dumb enough to take it and flick it in her face, and I didn't want to be bothered. And for the boy, I mean, with every right, the boyfriend punched me. I mean, I should have got punched because it took a lot of guts for her to come up and do that, and I just crapped on it. So I got into a big fight. A couple of my buddies came in there, and I didn't know it was the hockey team. It was a hockey team that we fought, and it was a pretty big fight, and we broke a couple guys' jaws, and they couldn't play. They were in a championship game that year, and they couldn't play because they couldn't put the chin straps on. So the next day, we showed up to the stadium, and some guy had my baseball card. It's like, hey, can you sign your baseball card? And I picked the baseball card, went to sign it, and it was a I think it's called a Mountie, which is a cop in Canada, and they arrested me for assault and the two other guys, and I went to jail in Canada. And then the vice president of Blue Jays flew out there and, bailed me out. And I was supposed to go to instructional baseball that year, which, once again, if you don't know that, instructional baseball means you're having a great year. You go to instructional, and you usually go to big league spring training camp to see if you can break with them. But that never happened because I got sent home.
If you didn't get into trouble, do you think you would have been good enough to get to the next level?
I believe defensively, I mean, I was a good hitter my whole entire life. they don't focus upon that when you get drafted. At least back then, they didn't focus upon hitting as much as being able to control the game, throw, being able to call a good game, study, being able to direct everybody, being a captain of the team. So I was still about 240, 250 hitter in professional baseball, but my defensive was good. I threw out 70+% of the runners as far as defensive-wise, didn't make any errors, called a good game. So I believe I could have. I might not have been a superstar, but I could have at least had a chance to break with them. But every time they came up, I would somehow sabotage that.
Why do you think you're acting out? It doesn't seem like your dad taught you that or would tolerate that as a kid growing up playing baseball.
I've thought about it a lot. I don't know. Because I'm not a bad person at heart. I'm not. Maybe because some of the attention I got from my dad or I wanted from my dad only came if I did good, performance-based. So I don't know why. There's a bunch of reasons I went over my head. I just can't figure out why. Maybe God didn't want me to do that, so my free will, he allowed me to. I don't know. I don't have the answer to that. I wish I did.
How'd your dad react when you got cut?
He was upset, but I wound up getting right back on a team. I mean, it wasn't long before, I didn't get cut that time. I got sent home and suspended, and then I got invited back the next year to the same exact ball club, same exact place. But when I showed up, people in Canada they don't forget. I know they had a couple of people in the parking lot with a sign that said "Kill Polis," and they said during the game I was on deck circle. There was a little red dot, and I don't think it was a gun. I think someone was messing with me, but they saw that. I was like, dude, you just can't be here. So then I got fired because I just couldn't play in Canada anymore.
Why would they bring you back after having that behavior?
Well, they invest in you. So, I mean, they invest a lot. I mean, there's a lot that goes into the training, that goes into bringing people up, housing them, paying for them, feeding them. You get a lot of good things, coaching, stuff like that. So they do invest, and people do mess up. Look at some of the big leagues now; they get in trouble.
You must have known it was going to be an uphill battle, though, going back after a year.
I don't know if I did, to be honest. I don't know. I just thought forgive and forget. They like but they like hockey better than baseball. I know that because it just didn't work. So I did get let go, sent back, and I was living in Florida at the time. I didn't want to go back to New York, so I stayed there. And I think I was a waiter for Texas Roadhouse, something like that. I think in the off season, but I did wind up getting my agent got me a tryout with the White Sox in '94, and I wound up making the White Sox squad. And I think I played about 6 months. 6 months for them. Jordan was there. Michael Jordan was there, and it was chaotic. Every news station in the world was there. It was. I don't think they've ever had a spring training game in Sarasota, Florida, sell out, but every single game was sold out. And it was crazy. And you can hit a home run, and they would give you golf claps. But if he even connected with the ball, standing ovation. It was crazy. But it was scary. So I did that, but didn't break with the club, the AA club I wanted to. So I wound up letting go from there, and then I wound up getting picked up by the Yankees, '95. I was telling you in the office, it was just kind of like a fluke thing. I was just practicing at Sarasota High School, just throwing the ball around, and I had a pretty good arm. So there was a scout there picking up his son from high school and saw me throwing on the field and approached me on the field and asked me if I can, do this, throw down at second base, and he had a little stopwatch, and he was clocking that right around 1.7, 1.72, and which is a really good time. And so they ended up asking me to play with the Yankees. So I wound up going to that guy's house that day, signed with the Yankees, and I was in '95, showed up to the spring training. I remember Derek Jeter was just drafted then. So I was playing with him, Wade Boggs, Jimmy Lystra, Jimmy Key, all those guys, and had a pretty good spring training, and then a baseball strike happened, so we didn't go. There was no season. They stopped. Some people crossed the line. They call them scabs and whatnot. And I asked them what they thought I should do, and they said, stay back. So, I mean, was it the right decision? I don't know, but I was able to play with those guys, the big leaguers, for months, and that is a good experience. Wade Boggs is my stretching partner and stuff like that, and I got to watch him hit and work with his trainer, and then a strike happened, and if you cross the line later on, they invited someone, but everyone that didn't, they cut. So we got cut and went over to Washington to play with, I think at that time it might have been Colorado Rockies, but it was called the Tri-City Posse. It's where I live now in Tri-Cities. Independent professional baseball. They still pay you, but it's independent. And they wound up getting affiliated later on, but it was something to fill in and stay loose while I was in between teams.
What was the name of the manager of the Yankees at that time? I read his book a couple months ago.
Oh, gosh, I don't even know.
He has a book, so I'm familiar with all the names of the players in that time period. I forgot, but it was an interesting.
Pinella? No.
I don't know. It was an interesting book. I got to look it up after. It was a good book. It's funny that you're talking about it now, and you were on the team doing that at that time period.
They had, was it Greg Nettles' brother was the coach of the independent baseball team that I played for. Also, it was kind of fun. You got to meet Jose Canseco. He was playing down there at one of those leagues, San Antonio Tejanos. It was fun. It was, I think they didn't pay that much, maybe $3,000-4,000 a month, something like that. But once again, you're playing professional baseball and you're having a good time. And I wound up staying with that team for about 3 years till I had my first son, and I just kind of lost interest in baseball about that time. I just didn't want to leave him. If something changes when you have a kid, you just don't want to leave him. You kind of grow up time, and I look back and it's like it just didn't seem like I'm just going to make it from there, because there's a big battle going back, and I don't know what that was in 1995, so it's 25. That's considered not old, but old to get started again. So I wound up playing until I was like 28, and I was just done.
Do you think it was never really your passion to begin with?
It was a passion, because if you give everything to something, it's a passion.
Not unless it's forced, though.
For a while, in the beginning, I knew I was good. I liked the attention. Maybe that's why. Maybe all the things I did wrong was for attention.
I know that's why I got into trouble.
I like the attention. Yeah, it's just I never really thought about why I did the things I did until later on. But I still haven't gotten a definitive answer yet. But I just know it was fun in the beginning, but once you have to fight for affirmation, and then I realized I can get things by manipulating people. If I played and did good, I can get certain things. And I think you're playing for the wrong reason at that time. Even though I had talent, I was playing for the wrong reasons. I don't want to play to make somebody happy. I want to play because I want to play. And once once I had the opportunity to walk away and have nobody around me to say not to do that, I just walked away.
So what happens when you walk away?
I walked away, and I don't know exactly. I think I didn't work for a while there. I just kind of lingered around, and I think I walked into Enterprise Rent-A-Car or selling cars or something like that, to be honest with you. I know every job I had, I excelled in. Maybe because the work ethic my dad put in me, say that. But I know I gave it my all. I know at one point in time I worked for Enterprise Rent-A-Car. Made it to manager real quick. I think my 2-year anniversary, I walked away. I got into an argument with the manager. I think I was playing some kind of music in my office, and she didn't like it, so she broke the CD, and I walked out on her. I felt untouchable. I don't know. I can just quit and do something, and I know I'll find something else.
Did you feel like you were better than that? You go from playing some level of professional baseball to working at Enterprise. Yeah. In your mind, what are you thinking?
That's a real good question. I think maybe I did. Maybe I thought I was above everyone. I should get treated a certain way because I was at a professional level and they weren't. Maybe I did. Maybe it was that.
Did you have money saved up? You said you didn't work for a little while.
No. I spent a lot. I partied a lot when I was playing. You don't get paid that much, and I was not good with my money, so no. I know with Enterprise I made decent money, but still didn't save up. I went to selling cars. I know with cars I made some money that I had some saved up. So I sold cars for a very short time in my life, but I know at one point in time I was making like 8-10 grand a month selling cars. I mean, it's easy to sell cars. Everyone knew me. They knew I played baseball. So I can sell cars to them. How many times can people keep buying cars? You run out of customers sooner or later. And I know Tri-Cities at that time was in the 200 and something thousand population. So, but they asked me to come back as a coach. I didn't want to. And I got a couple offers to become a baseball coach at one of the high schools there. Like when I'm done with something, I'm done with it. I don't even watch baseball now. Every once in a while I might flick on the home run competition, but everyone's like, you watching the Yankees? I'm like, no. When I'm done with something, I'm just done. I don't see the reason.
What did your dad say when you finally walked away from baseball?
Pissed. He got pissed. He still wonders to this day, I promise you. I just got asked that 2-3 days ago. If you would have stuck with it, it's like 40 years later, if you would have stuck with it, you would have been big. I'm like, yeah, but what does that accomplish? What is the bigs? I mean, is it recognition? Is it money? There's no security in that. Because you can mess up one game or say the wrong thing and you could be fired like that. So, yeah, I still hear that. But, I'm just done with it. I'm just not.
What happens after Enterprise?
Well, I remember playing, when I was selling cars, I remember meeting I had a gentleman walk on the lot one time, and he looked, I think I was chasing success to a certain degree. Obviously, everyone does. But I saw a guy walk on the car lot one day, dressed in a suit and tie, had a nice watch on. I talked to him, asked him what he did for a living. He said he ran his own corporation. It's cool. He said, if you ever have a job opportunity, I will quit on the spot. Because I'm pretty good at that, and I'll work for you free until I figure out how to make money. And okay, remember, I don't know how long ago exactly, but I remember seeing it, bumping into him again, and him saying there was a spot opened up, and so I went upstairs and quit and done. I didn't check out where he worked or nothing like that. So let's go. So we went to church, and I asked, so what are we doing? He's like, oh, this is where I work. I'm a pastor. I was like, he said you own a corporation. He goes, I do. It's a 501c3. I was like, oh, what am I going to do? Like, I don't know. He said you work for free. Figure it out. So, I was in a pickle because I was married at the time, kid, and I don't have an income. So I remember at that time, my current wife now worked for that church 20-something years ago. And I went to her, and I knew they had a couple different ministries, and they had a food bank. They said it was real small, but I said, man, it should be bigger than that. And he says, I guess you know where to start. So I had Stacy and the other lady, Tammy, that was there, had them help me put together a proposal because I was going to raise millions of dollars and go out there and build a food bank and try to earn a living. And I did. I got in front of a lot of big companies, and one company, I'm probably not even going to mention the name, but it's a very big sheet metal company, a $1 billion company. And I got in front of them with this proposal. And I called them, and I said it was an investment opportunity. I remember going around, and when I got to the point where it was a food bank, a nonprofit, the owner stopped me, CEO, and he's like, what is this? And I said, I'm trying to raise money for a food bank. He's like, I'm not giving you money for a food bank. I was like, well, I don't need your money, you fat ass. And he's like, I said, get out of here. He goes, this is my place. I was like, frick. So that's the walk of shame right there. So I started packing my stuff up, and the vice president at the time asked if he can clear the room, and it was me, my pastor, and the financial manager and of the church. And he's like, Pete, what are you doing? I said, I'm trying to raise money to build a food bank. And he goes, that guy's $1 billion. No one talks to him that way. I said, well, I do. I said, I don't care. And he said, that took some set of balls to do that. And I said, yeah. He's like, what do you need to start this? And I said, $729,000 is for the food bank, the warehouse. And he said, how about this? I'll go to the bank tomorrow and I'll get you the money. And he made up a structured loan, a payback. And he told the finance, he says, is that possible? Is that doable? And she said, that's very doable. It's more than we're paying. It's less than we're paying now for nothing. So, I mean, I left there with the commitment for $700 and something thousand. So I was like, can I pay some money now? He's like, hold on. He said, you got earnest money. And I'm like, what? What is earnest money? I never bought a house before. I said, you got to put money down. I mean, it was a big ordeal. I winded up, it was $62,000 for the earnest money. And I guess it was an old oil refinery business that, refined oil. So they had to do core samples to make sure it wasn't contaminated. And that cost $22,000. So I had to raise all this money. So I wound up selling tiles. I saw a tile company across the street, and I said, I have an idea. So I got a 12 by 12 tile and a 6 by 12 tile, and I was going to sell the big one for $1,000, small one for $500. And my pastor's like, if you think you could do it, do it. And I did it. I wound up raising all $62,000. Those tiles are still there to this day on the wall. I raised all the money, and at that time, 15,000 square feet. And it's funny because that winded up coming up with my indictment later on in life, was that food bank. I know to date it's probably fed, I think they said it fed 750,000 people with over 15 million pounds of food since the inception to today. It's impacted that community that much. And I mean, I didn't know the impact it was going to have. I was just trying to make some money at the time. I feel like I got kind of caboozled into the job thing because I didn't know it was a church at the time, but I was I was in full-time ministry now, and I was able to get, I think, maybe a $2,000 salary from that, so I felt halfway decent because I was making some money then.
I think it's interesting to see like this aspect of your story shows that you do have a good heart within you, no matter what happens.
I do.
Later on,
Mm-hmm. I think I always did. I think I put on this persona and try to act tougher than I was, But I do. I don't like to see people suffer. I don't like to see people go without. So I've always had that. But we'll just see what happens. I've been through a lot after that, and I know that went on for about 8 years. I worked for the church and winded up becoming an associate pastor. They went through this thing where the pastor had a few different pastors overseeing, and I was over a few different ministries. And I know we changed a lot of lives. I know we impacted a lot of. We went from like a 200-person church. I know it was over 1,000 people at one time. And I believe it was a movement within the city. We're feeding people. We're becoming a good impact. And things couldn't get better. In my eyes, things couldn't get better. What can go wrong? And at this time, I don't believe it was me that sabotaged it. My pastor, he had hepatitis C. He was an ex-heroin user that got clean, and he had hepatitis C from that. Well, I know he tried to, triple his life insurance policy and whatnot, but he needed a clean bill of health. And I guess the life insurance policy says you have to be rid of hepatitis C for a certain amount of time to be deemed clean. And it's almost impossible back then to get rid of that. But, God, I did see a miracle because God completely healed that man of it. And once again, we thought it was a bad battle, but he overcame it. And I know with the next day after he got that great news, he had a little pain in his back, and it winded up being the rarest form of cancer that no one even knew what it was. And he just got over that chemo and got over all. He said, no, I'm just going to, either God's going to heal me or I'm going home. And it took him out in literally 30 days or something like that, quick. It just ate him away, and that screwed my mind up like no other. So I quit and ran. I quit that ministry. I don't know how many days after his memorial, I quit and bolted to Arizona to go work in Arizona.
Why Arizona?
Because one of the pastors that was helping us had a church in Arizona, and one of the guys offered me a job working in prison. It's kind of funny, working in prison as a telemarketer manager. So I would go teach the inmates how to sell OSHA compliance safety meetings on a Vici dial. They couldn't actually dial the phone. They could double click, and all the phones were recorded. So they could double click on something, and it would call people who were interested in OSHA compliance who needed a safety meeting, and I taught them how to sell. So I did that for about a year and a half until I had a customer one time need on-site training I don't know how old you are, but there was a Valdez oil spill that happened a while ago where millions of gallons of oil spilled in the ocean and they needed to clean up. Well, this guy needed on-site training, people down there, and we didn't do that. And I asked the owner, are we ever going to have on-site training? He said, nope. So I remember at lunchtime, I called up a buddy of mine and asked him to create a company for me, a safety company that does on-site training. And I wound up booking an old client of theirs. I made $39,000 in one weekend by sending material out there. And the email receipt went to my work email, and I got fired for competition clause. And I didn't see it as that at the time. In my mind, I just said, you're never going to do on-site training, so I'm just going to start a company and provide it. I didn't see anything wrong. Maybe it is wrong. I mean, it is wrong, obviously, but I didn't see how that could be wrong. But it was wrong, so I got fired. So once again, now I'm in Arizona with no job, and the vice president told me of that company, he said, Pete, just go to a furniture store. Anybody with a heartbeat.
Furniture store?
It's in Yuma, Arizona. So there's a lot of snowbirds that come there each year, and there's a Marine base. So usually when snowbirds come in the wintertime, in the summertime, Marines come. So it's constant flow, and the Marines are always looking to replace furniture that was broken in transport, and the snowbirds are always looking at furniture for their winter home. So I went into, there's only 3 furniture stores there, 2 owned by one person. I went in there and asked for a job, and they told me to come back the next day, and I did that for 6 days until I just kept getting ignored. So I went in there like the 6th time, and I said, what in the hell does anybody have to do to get hired around here? And the general manager was there, and she said, well, how can I help you? I said, it's not how you can help me. It's how I can help you. I've been here 6 times asking for a job. Nobody will even approach me. How about you hire me and I can teach these guys how to sell? And she goes, you got some set. And I said, maybe, but nobody approached me. I said, can I have a job? And she said, well, call back on Saturday by 11, I'll have an answer. At 11:01, I called her and I said, hey, you have no integrity. You told me you're going to call 11. It's 11:01. She said, oh my God, just come in Sunday. So I got hired on Sunday, and within 2 weeks, I made it to a sales manager there, because the owner was very aggressive, and he heard about me and then watched me sell. I think March 13th, I got hired on one, I forgot what year it was exactly, but I told them in the opening meeting, I said, you watch, I said, by the end of March, I'll be the number 1 seller. I'll never leave that spot. And they're like, who's this guy? But sure enough, I sold $53,000 in two weeks, and I was number 1 seller. And then I stayed the number 1 sales manager for a few years straight without dipping.
So you stayed in that position for a few years?
Yeah, I stayed in that position, and I negotiated my own contract. I got a certain percentage, like 7%, and then I got paid bonuses on every salesperson that hit a certain mark on delivered. And then I had 2 stores. And so at that time, I was probably making between $12,000 and $15,000 a month. I mean, I was killing it. And you almost think, I almost didn't like when things went good, because it always seems to go bad. And at that time, I did nothing. There was some trouble at home. One of my children got in trouble, and I needed to come back home just because they were doing the old in Washington this time, and then to Arizona, and they were flying back and forth, and it's not good with kids. That's not a healthy environment. So I winded up flying back to Washington. I looked up one of the franchises there that had to do with that furniture store, emailed them my resume and my numbers, and said it would be in your best interest to hire me, because or else I'm going to go to your competitor. And they hired me. It took about a $50,000, $60,000 pay cut, because Yuma had 3 stores, 2 owned by one person. Washington had dozens of stores, and it's competition. So, but I still had a decent living, So I wound up renting a house online. I had 2 kids at that time. They both moved in with me, and I started working for a furniture store there. And everything was okay until one day I heard one of my son's friends came over, was in the garage talking, and I just overheard the conversation about how much opiates went for. And I, up to this point, I was a professional baseball player, pastor. I didn't know any really thing about the drug trade, but I heard $1 per milligram. I was like, what the heck? I'm like, man, people here trust me. I could probably get my hands on some of these. So when the guy got the phone, I said, hey, I heard your conversation. Oh, I'm so sorry, Mr. Polis. I said, no. Can you get me that kind of money if I get those? Because I have people that have them. He's like, well, yeah. I was like, okay, I'll get back to you. So I started to just put the tentacles out there and just see what I can find. Found it really quick. I asked around. There was at that time a dirty doctor in that town, and I went to go see that person. And during the physical part of it, where they asked questions and they went to physical to give you the physical, the doctor at the time inappropriately touched me. I know they did it on purpose. And I was like, it's like that? I said, it can be. I was like, what do you mean it can be? And I didn't get the response I thought I was going to get. They said, I heard you can sing. I was like, what the hell? What does that have to do with anything? And I said, listen, at the time, my husband is disabled, and I used to love singing. So if you go to sing karaoke with me, I'll bring the prescription pad. You get what you want. I was like, done. So I started doing that. And I started getting, and I had things wrong with me from baseball. I got into an accident, I hurt my neck, so physically I can get away with it. But they winded up giving me, at that time, I started out with 150 Oxy 20s, 15 fentanyl patches, and 120 Xanax, first appointment. And it only can go up from there. So immediately I started flipping that. Once you get into, as you know, once you get into that trade, you'll see everyone. You can recognize them like anything. And it just took a matter of time before people that were in my congregation, and I'm not really proud about this, I want to say this, but they asked me, are you really doing this? And I'm like, yeah. They said, well, we have a connection here, a connection there. So I just started dabbling in it, and I just said I was going to do pills only. And then one of the guys I knew flipped me a bag of Coke one day, and I was like, what is this? And he's like, oh, it's this stuff's pure. And I was like, but I'm not dealing with this. And he's like, just give it away. He goes, just give it away. I don't care. All right. So I gave it to one person, and 20 minutes later they called back and said, where'd you get that? I said, oh, for a buddy of mine. How much more can you get? I'm like, I don't know why. He goes, that stuff is awesome. So I was like, hey, how much more can I get? He said, as much as you want. So, I mean, just literally overnight, things started popping. But I had a full-time job, and I was like, all right, how am I going to do this? So I did it so that I can, on lunchtime, I had an hour lunch, I can meet people during lunch and deal with them. And then on Thursdays, I would send a few people off to different colleges and with a couple ounces, and they would go there, stay from Thursday to Sunday, and then come home with the proceeds. And things were going good, but business continued to grow and clients continued to grow. And you were in this, so you know it just gets out of control before you really know it. So I needed to find a way to handle the amount of customers that I had. And so I started telling them to meet me in the store. So I knew a couple of key things: discounted items and layaways are the two things that needed to be approved by managers. So I know, so just come in there, just say you want to put this on layaway. If you say a living room set, I know you mean pills. If you say bedroom set, I know you mean Coke. And I just started categorizing different vignettes. They say a living room vignette, bathroom vignette, whatever. So I started doing that, and then I was like, all right, this is going to work, but I have to pre-stage stuff. So I had to start going in the mornings, and I had to start putting different pills, whatever I had to pre-stage them around the showroom floor, underneath ottomans, in dresses, in discontinued vases. It was getting out of control. So I got two of my salespeople that I knew and said, hey, this is what's going on. I know you use, so I'll give you free stuff if you can help me handle these customers. I'll just tell you what to do. So it went from 2 to almost every salesperson there but one girl were working for me. The warehouse people would deliver the bigger stuff up in ottomans and up in recliners and right to the store, right to the people's houses. They'd sign for it. They'd give them the money, and they'd come back. I mean, it was flawless. So I did that for a long time. I know one day my warehouse driver stopped at Kohl's and smoked some of the product and OD'd and fell out of the truck. And I know the cops went to him, got with him, and then came to me and asked me if I knew anything about that. And I said, no, I have a strict drug policy that we UA people. And so I told him I take care of it. But that kind of that was one thing that the cops started looking into. I didn't like that. So we just kept going on, and it just kept getting bigger and bigger. And that doctor can only give me so much stuff. So I know one day I had a conversation. One of the girls in the room had a conversation on Skype. You remember Skype back in the day?
Of course, yeah.
All right. Well, I was with my guys with the whiteboard, sending people to University of Washington, Eastern, and the girl was talking to a family member in Tijuana, and she had a baby with a guy from one of the cartel families, and he asked her, what is this guy doing in the background? Who is that guy? She goes, oh, so-and-so's boyfriend, or she's hanging out with him, and he's a coke dealer. He's like, hey, can I meet him? And I found that afterwards. But a few days later, I get a phone call from these guys. I said, hey, I'm so-and-so's cousin. I want to come. We're in the area. Can we ask you for a favor? Sure. So they met me at the apartment. I went down. They had a truck full of meth. And I was like, whoa, like 20-something pounds in a Ford Ranger. I was like, dude, I don't do that or deal in that. That's bad. He's like, well, you do with coke? He says, no difference. I said, well, to me it is. And they're like, well, we have the axle is frozen on this thing. It got on a tow truck. We need to get rid of some stuff. I was like, well, let me make a couple phone calls. I'll help you out this time, and that's it. So I called a couple of surgeons and doctors and surgeons and other things, and I knew they used that stuff for medical purposes or whatever they use. It doesn't matter what they use it for. But they winded up picking up like 4 pounds, a few people. And that was it. Those people left, thank you, and went away. That was it. They asked me if you ever need anything, let me know. Nothing. They walked away. 6 months passes by, and the guy that saw me on the Skype gets arrested going to Tijuana with some weed. And he goes to prison. And the guy that he was with asked me, can you fill in a position for him? He just picks up cars in Arizona and brings them here. I said, I'm not bringing any drugs back. He goes, no, there's 3 cars. He goes, there's a car in the middle that's got the drugs, but there's a guy in the back, and the guy in the front will just look out for cops. Guy in the back, if that guy in the middle gets pulled over, just distract the cop and make sure the guy do what you got to do. It's like, all right, I'll be the front guy. Cool. And I remember one of the first times I went, I was scared. I wound up letting out air. Every rest stop, I let air out of my tire. I always kept saying, bro, something's wrong with this car. We should probably go back. We'll go another day. And he's like, nope. No, we got to just keep going. They filled it up. The 3rd time, he's like, all right, we'll just stay here. We're going to get you another car. I'm like, I said, I got to be honest with you, bro. I said, I've been letting air out. He's, why the hell? I said, bro, I'm scared. I never did this before. I said, I'm really scared. He's like, yeah, we're doing it. We have to. I said, well, I'll do it. One condition. He said, what? I say, have the guys come over here. I know it's going to sound really bad. Like, I said, I want to pray over the car. And they go, you got to pray over the car? God's not going to bless you. I said, bro, listen, I'm not asking him to bless me. I said, but he's my Father in heaven, so he's not going to leave me. So I at least want protection. I need his blessing. He's like, he's not going to bless us to make me feel good. So we did that. They thought I was crazy. And we did the first trip, and I'm not saying God got me through it at all, because I know he didn't. He just kept me safe. He's got a calling in everybody's life, and I know that. So, but we ended up doing that, and 60, 70, 80 times or something like that over how many years. And
You're still running the furniture business while that's going on?
I did. I had 2 days off a week, and I'd be able to drive from here to Phoenix and back in I don't know, it was 16 hours or 18 hours, and I was able to, with no sleep. I mean, you do that when you use illicit drugs or whatnot, coke or whatever. I wasn't into the opiates at the time. I wasn't in there. I know at one point in time, that one girl that didn't work for me, she made a comment. The company got bought out by another corporation, and she said one day, "I think Pete sells drugs to the customers." To one of the other managers there, and she's like, "Why would you say that?" Because he always high fives people coming out of the bathroom, and he knows every customer that comes in. And they said, "Well, we'll give everybody a UA." So they did question me about it. They said, "Hey, one of the employees says that you sell drugs." I said, "No." They said, "Would you have any? Can we go in your locker and look in your bags?" I said, "No, it's my personal stuff. Would you be open for a UA?" I said, "Sure." I took a UA, passed it, and I had fake pee, obviously. So I passed it, but she didn't. She was relentless, and they were relentless. And I came in one day on my day off to close a $10,000 deal, and they said, "When you're done, you're going to take another UA." I said, "Just took one 2 days ago." And they said, "Well, we want to take another one." It's like, "It's my day off." They said, "If you don't take it and you leave, we're going to consider that your resignation." I said, "It's my day off." So I left, and they considered my resignation. And they said, "Hey, you quit." I'm like, "I didn't quit." They said, "Yes, you did." And putting it as that. So I literally got forced into quitting because they were going to watch me take it. There's no way I'm going to pass another UA, back to back. So now I had a different problem. I had a lot of customers that were going into that store to see me, and I wasn't working anymore.
So the customers, they know that you're selling drugs out of there. They come in.
Certain customers, not everyone.
So they would come in and they'd say, "I want whatever the piece of furniture lined up with whatever that drug was, whatever that option."
Well, they would say, "I need something on layaway," and when I would go show them the different vignettes, they say different living room or bedroom or whatnot, I would talk to them and find out what they needed.
Now, obviously, you have to charge more for that piece of furniture to make your profit on the drugs. So how would you run that through the
A
system?
layaway, you just put money down each week until you save up enough money to buy it.
But are they paying cash or?
Yeah.
So everything's cash.
Everything's cash.
This system wouldn't have worked if its credit card ran through the system where you couldn't take your piece. Okay.
No.
Because otherwise the owners wouldn't, or they wouldn't even give you that extra money to begin with.
Correct.
Okay.
Correct.
So this is a straight cash business.
Straight cash. Yeah.
Okay.
And then if you can cancel up until your last payment to pick it up, you can cancel. And if they did cancel, I would charge 25% for the cancellation. But usually when they canceled and got all that money back, because I did take $25, I had to take something and put it towards the furniture.
Yeah, but so the owners know, and that's the actual cost of the furniture?
That was the minimum amount, was $25 each payment. You had to make at least $25 payment.
You're charging more than the furniture's worth, right?
Yeah, if I charged $300, because $275 was going towards the product, I put $25 towards the furniture, and I keep the $275, and give them the rest. So they were making $25 payments, the minimum payment.
But say like an ottoman was $300, and then you incorporate the price of the drugs, whatever that is. You add that on to the price.
They
of
couldn't
that.
put an ottoman on layaway. It had to be a whole set.
Okay.
Yeah, it had to be a minimum amount.
Okay, and then that would add up to a large amount.
Yeah, it was like a bedroom set would be $3,000. So they would put $25 a week down on that for a long time. They can come in so many times. Each time they needed something, like I would have to approve the payments. If they couldn't make a payment, I can approve an extension. So they would make payments and just put 25. They would give me what they needed, and I would just take 25 out of that and put it towards the furniture on that way.
So is the cover then of them continuously coming in that they're just coming in to make the payments?
Yeah.
That's why no one noticed that these same customers are coming
100%.
in week after week after week.
Because they have to.
Okay.
That's the deal on that. They have to. Especially with the rent-a-centers too in there. That's all cash, pretty much. They rent it. They rent the furniture, and they have to come in to make payments.
How would they physically get the drugs, though? I know you said you guys were delivering, but doesn't the furniture not get delivered until?
Well, the person that was running the front desk has to give a receipt. They go into my office. That's where the cash register was, and they know what they put in. They know what they would have, and they would put it in an envelope, staple it shut with the receipt, and hand it to them over the counter. Because everything was seen on camera except the office.
And the drugs are in the envelope?
The drugs are in my office at the time.
And then they put it in the envelope to give it to with the receipt.
Yeah. But if it was too big if they needed a bulk of it, it had to be afterwards. I couldn't do that. Anything would fit in an envelope.
And then for bigger orders, that's when you guys would actually transport it and deliver it?
Yeah, or people would call a lot of times, and I can go. There's a smoke room. There's a smoke break place out back, or I can run to my car, or it's connected to a mattress area, which is in the middle of the bathroom, and I can always just run into the bathroom. It was for bigger clients, stuff like that. I had other people pushing for me on the outside, and they would meet, or they say, "Hey, so and so needs this." I say, "All right, go take a lunch break real quick and go deliver that and come back," and then I pay them. Yeah, it was flawless. It was a flawless operation.
How much money were you making a week?
I know at one point in time, like it wasn't a crazy amount of money, but one of the best weeks I had was about $26,000 in that 1 week.
That's profit after expenses.
That's profit after expenses. Wow. Yeah,
it's pretty good.
But it went right back to investing, and because at that time, that was things have changed. Back in the day when I was buying, this is when fentanyl just started coming out, and those fentanyl pills, they were selling for $50, $75 a piece. That's a lot. I would buy them for 15, 20, 25 a piece, wholesale. That's a lot of money. Like, now I heard they're a quarter. But you're talking about a life sentence now. If you get caught selling that stuff, I mean, we live and learn. I mean, I dodged a bullet, and it was right in the very beginning when all this started. This is back in 2014, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So the first 5 years, way back in the day when all this started to happen. So I thank God that no one died under my watch, but it was risky. But when you're caught up in it, you don't think about that. We did some crazy, like in my when I stopped working for that furniture place, I didn't like hand deliveries because I was always told by my dad, like, he didn't coach me on this because it was back in the day, but he always said they always look for the hand deliveries because it catches you red-handed. So they always want with control buys, always want to see the hand delivery, telltale. But I'd have people delivering on bikes. I had the Hide-A-Keys, the little Hide-A-Key. They had these Hide-A-Key sprinklers that look like a regular sprinkler. And I would put them in there and put them at a park and we'd have coordinates. And we'd meet the people. And I was trustworthy. I didn't steal. So a lot of my clients really trusted me, and they had no problem giving me money and then getting a phone call with the coordinates on where it was. It was crazy. The key magnets behind stop signs at apartment complexes up in that, with the parking garages there, just sticking there. You'd never know. To license plates. I had people coming up on bikes, popping them right on the license plate. They'll pay me. I'll give you a call in a couple minutes, and they go, "Where is it?" "It's on your license plate," because someone else would do it. I mean, I try to get as creative as possible to not get caught, hand to hand. I just try to make it. I don't know. I just got creative. I didn't want to get busted like that. Back in the day, I think Uber. I don't know when Uber started, but I know Uber Eats just started a while, and I'd have two guys that were doing that part time, and they come deliver, and it's in the Burger King bag, it's in the McDonald's bag, everything was there, and if anybody sees it, I'm paying the delivery person money. It was just, I try to get as creative as possible. I try to cover every single area to not get caught.
How did you end up getting caught?
At one point in time, I got so big that I got my head cracked open. I got shot. One of the guys did get arrested. That was from a cartel family. He got arrested, and that was the point in time when I could have got out. I tried to get out once before and switch, not because I'm trying to run away or because I owed money, just because I guess reality hit one time, and I was like, I got people that are affiliated with this family babysitting, and I know people got on me last time I said this on another podcast. Like, great father. I mean, I'm not trying to say I was the best father in the world. I'm just saying I did what I needed to do at the time. I didn't know. These guys, I know they paint a bad picture, but honestly, these guys, I went to the weddings. I mean, these guys are friends, and they come over and they watch. And I know when I left the furniture store, that apartment got so blown up. There was my neighbor below me was an attorney, and he said to me one day, come downstairs and ask me, he goes, give me $5. I'm like, why? Give me $5. I'm like, yeah. He's like, all right. His client privilege. He goes, what are you doing? I said, what do you mean? He goes, Pete, you got 75 people that came to visit you today. I'm like, no. He goes, yeah, me and my wife are counting. What do you, you're going to get in trouble. I'm like, so I heeded to that, and I was like, all right, maybe I should move. So I had one of the guys that sold for me put an apartment in his name, and I was just going to pay the bills. And I switched apartments at a midnight run so no one could see me. I switched and didn't tell anybody. And 2-3 days later, my son gets on his bike to go down to Albertsons, and I get a phone call from a phone, didn't recognize. And I was like, hello? He's like, Dad, can you come downstairs? I'm like, whose phone is this? He's like, well, these guys in a Raptor picked me up and put me my bike in the back of the car. And I mean, I'm not going to say they kidnapped him, but they picked him up and said, take me to your dad. And they said, why are you moving? I'm like, because I'm getting freaking heat over here. I need to move. I said, the guy below me says there's too many people coming. And I didn't owe him money. And it wasn't vicious like they freaking kidnapped him. But it was a subtle, hey, don't do that. They said, you know what too many things are. I met people in Phoenix at certain exits, Travelers Inn. I mean, I knew where everything was. I would deliver. I knew these people by name. So I do understand they're being cautious. But it just got to the point where I started selling so much that I got threats from other people that were trying to sell in the area about the cost. Because when that guy got arrested and I cleared my phone, I had a little Mexico number at the bottom one day. Back in the day, Metro PSC, something like that.
PC, yeah.
You put your email address in, and it brings up all your contacts. Well, I saw an unknown number, texted it, and it was a guy that was down in Mexico, and he knew me, and he's like, hey, what's going on? I said, so-and-so got arrested. He goes, I know. He goes, what do you need? I'm like, I mean, if I would have never picked up that phone and called, I could have literally walked away. But I just didn't. So he winds up giving it to me for $14 a pill. I was like, man, that is almost half of what I was paying. And he's like, if I lend them to you, it'll be a little bit more. I'm like, front. I'm like, oh, cool. I was in Phoenix the next 2 days I was down there. And this was the first time I really started dealing on my own. I had a partner always. And it was a little scary, I'll be honest. I had to go down. I was given Jack in the Box on exit 51 or something. I went in there and went to the bathroom, and the guy handed me a note with a phone number, and I called a phone number, went to a Burger King, and then it was go down, call this number, and when we hotbox you, and I don't know to this day, I don't even know what that means, but it was in the phone as I was driving. He goes, did you hear that? Make a left, park your car, go down this alley, and there was a car parked at the very end that flashes lights. And that's the first time that I started using fentanyl, because when I got in that car, the person made me. They said, when I got in the car, they said, you're a cop. And I said, no, I am not. I said, yes, you are. And he called the guy and said, this guy's a cop. He says, no, he's been with us for years. Like, he's not. He's like, smoke this. I said, I don't do that. He goes, you're gonna. You're not getting your drugs. You're not even in the truck if you don't smoke this. So I didn't like it, obviously. I never have anybody try fentanyl, but it is what it is. And I liked it, and I continued to do it after that. So now I'm picking up on my own. I'm getting it for half the price. I'm lowering the price in the streets, and I have people that are selling competitively, threatening me. I get pulled over in a car by my buddy. My buddy says, come meet this guy. I wind up getting shot in my foot. I got my head cracked open. I mean, these are injuries that stay with me to this day. I still can't feel from my knee down after surgery, getting the bullet removed. And it sucks. But it was on my own doing that. So when that happened, I started selling so much more because it was cheaper. So one day, this person that was with me said, you're too smart to go to prison, Pete. I said, what the hell are you talking about? Did you tell on me? They said, no, but everyone knows you. Like, you have enemies. People are going to tell you. So I guess they told me in 2016, when I read my discovery, in 2016, they started an investigation on me. That led 2 years.
Why did you need to do this side work for the cartel, the picking up this and that, when you had the successful business at the furniture store?
Well, when my guy got arrested, I didn't get the product anymore.
But why are you the one physically having to pick all this up?
Because I'm micromanaging stuff.
Okay, so that was the problem. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I had to have. In my eyes, no one could do it better than me.
So it wasn't a side business. This was just physically the pickups for you to get the product for the furniture store.
This was for me. I was paying people at the time $1 a pill just to deliver. But after a while, people started seeing, hey, well, I should be getting paid more. For what? These are my customers. It's my product. You're just delivering it. And they would start doing side deals, and it just got very high. People try to steal. They try to, pocket money. They try to take customers on the. It's me, I'm the control freak that I had to just do everything myself except hand deliver. But I mean, if I look back at it now, I didn't think of it at the time, but I'm bringing back 30, 40 kilos of stuff. Some of the stuff I'm not even going to sell, but I'm getting paid in product. I don't get paid in cash because I want the product. It was dumb of me to do, because if I would have got pulled over one time and got caught, I don't know what that is, but it's a life sentence.
Yeah, you're taking all the risk.
Taking all the risk. It was dumb, but I wasn't thinking straight. I just had to be in control of everything. So at that point in time, I mean, I'm picking up now. I'm moving. I'm going back. I'm doing sometimes 2 runs in a week. That's a lot. That's a lot to drive to Phoenix and back twice in a week. You have no breaks. I'm not seeing my kids. And it just got to the point where they said, people are watching you. I heard your name. I did have a 911 dispatch person's son that I sold to. And he would hear his, he asked the person, hey, if you ever hear these names come up, let me know. So she did. And there's a couple of times I dodged a bullet because he said, Peter, you going to Circle K right now? Yeah, why? Don't go there. He said, they're waiting for you. Who? The feds. I'm like, you're lying. He goes, I'm telling you. I'm like, the feds have nothing about me. They had 2 trap houses that I would go into and I would deal to. They busted that trap house probably a half a dozen times. Each time I got pulled out, they took my license, they ran it, and they're like, what is a person like you doing here? You have no record. I'm like, yeah, I know. They said, what are you doing? And I tell you, Ian, I knew the day I was going to go down because I mocked God, and I know I was bad. I told that cop, he said, what are you doing here? And I said, let me tell you something. I said, when Jesus walked this earth, he didn't run around with the kings and the queens. He ran around with the people in the miry clay, showing them a better way. And he goes, so you're telling me you're at this trap house trying to show these guys here a better way to live? I go, exactly. He goes, okay, have a good day. He handed me a license back. I walked away and I felt that dagger. And I was like, my buddy, I said, dude, I'm going to get in trouble. He goes, why? I go, I just mocked God. And I said, that hurt. And he's like, you're tripping. I said, no. I said, and that cop at that time, he was the head of the CAT team in Tri-Cities. He made it a personal vendetta to catch me. Like, when I mean personal vendetta, if I was a passenger in a car, he would pull that person over. He would take me out, search my stuff, even if I wasn't driving. And I remember one time my son got in trouble, and he had to turn himself in. I went to the courthouse with him. He didn't want to turn himself in yet. I said, fine. We went to Best Buy parking lot, 2 a.m. And I was just sitting there in the parking lot. I said, you need to make up your mind. And I put the chair back, and I kind of I just closed my eyes and said, let me know when you're ready. I woke up to being surrounded with the lights on. and the cop knocked at the window. And I was like, what the do you want? He's like, Mr. Polis, I finally found a way to arrest you. I was like, let me hear it. He says, back in 2008. I'm like, that's 10 years ago. He goes, I know. He goes, you left to Arizona. I said, I know. Here's my license. I had an Arizona license still. He said, thank you. You won't need that. And he tucked it away. And he goes, now, you're back here in Washington and you're driving. I said, I know. He said, do you know your license expired? I said, yeah. He goes, in Washington, when it expires and you don't pay it, it gets suspended. I said, okay. And he says, so right now you're driving on a suspended license and the key's in the car. So you're under arrest for driving on a suspended license. I was like, you've got to be kidding me. Nope. So now I'm not a betting man, but I bet you if I search them, I'm going to find those pills. And that's literally how I got the indictment federally.
Because they didn't have enough on you before. They were just
They had
looking.
nothing on me. Nothing at all.
How many pills are in the car?
10. They were in a little hide pen. One of those, you ever see the hide, they have Red Bulls that you take apart in this little empty space. It was a pen that hid 10 pills. That was it.
And they charge you federally for that?
No. They arrested me with possession. They took that arrest and the time with the trap house as enough evidence with all the rumors going on to indict me federally to come after me again. They said they had 4 or 5 people that were arrested that turned on me, and they heard different control. They had 2 control buys on me. One was videotaped and one had audio on it. So they had taken all these things that I didn't know about, and they're trying to get a federal indictment on me. Now, in Washington, it's a small little place. So that place, that trap house they got busted 4 or 5 times. Each time they arrested me, they just using each time that I would get arrested, not charged. I went to jail twice. Once with the pills. Once, gosh, I don't know what the other time I went for. I think we're at a hotel or something. We got arrested with a bunch of people. But I got OR, own recognizances.
Hey, wait, to get it dismissed or to...
No, because no bail. I would go to court
on
that Monday, and I had no record, so they would just let me go.
Okay.
And then I had obviously I had an appointment to show up. Oh, the other time I got arrested was a hit and run on an untenanted property. Look it up on Facebook. It's a true story. I took a U-Haul and I was moving and I backed it into a fence without knowing it, and I left. And at the end of the day, I came back and parked it there, and a cop was waiting for me and said they had me on camera hitting that fence, and it broke. And I was arrested for hit and run on untenanted property. Stupid.
So what do they charge you federally with?
Federally, that first when I got arrested, it was 2 counts of distribution. For both times, they said they got me on control buy. One was they had me on camera at Target, and I was going into the bathroom. I guess they had me on. They did. It's called a clean sweep, where they swept around and tapped into the cameras, and they saw me walk into Target, and the buy supposedly took place in the bathroom, but I went to go get some cologne or something like that. But they had that. The other one was right outside Red Lobster, and I guess I hopped in a car. I remember the day because I hopped in a car. I went to Carl's Jr. to meet somebody, and I told him to meet me, and I went to 3 other places before I stopped. And the person that got out with the pills, and they had me on camera, but they didn't see me turn around. They saw the guy get into the car, the back seat with somebody, and come out. On tape, they said that the audio ran out before I said anything incriminating. On camera, they didn't see me turn around, but they still used that as 2 controlled by because they said they had my pills. And I supposedly had the money and that they collected. So 2 counts of distribution. I fought that for, I think the first thing they said with my base offense level, I never been arrested before, but supposedly what they had me for was supposed to be 292 months because each count is upwards of 20 years. When we went there, they did first offer, second offer, third offer. Obviously he never talked. They can look at my or a pacer or whatever it is. I know everyone says fentanyl, and you got how much? I said, just check. Never talk, just check. But they had, the one got dismissed because the audio ran out. And then I went there and they said it was down to 1 count. And they offered me 87 months. And I said no. Then the day I went to court, the assistant prosecuting attorney said, we're going to offer you 60 months capped if you plead guilty to this. And if not, we have 2 people that will attest to you trafficking from Arizona back, summons of how many dozens of times over the past 2 years. And I asked my attorney, how can they go back and look? And he said, they can go back, digital prints. He says, from here to there's only 3 routes from here to Phoenix. If you use your card or if your license plate was seen at any one of those places, they can go back. And he goes, if that happens, you look at 10 years working down. Now it's 5 years working down. So I said, if I plead guilty, everybody else that's talking, will they get a break on it? They said, nope. I said, all right, well, guilty. And so that's the day they pled for that's when they brought up that warehouse. And they said, you fed like 750,000 people with all of that. And they said they give, for all the work she did in community, they did a 6-month downward, whatever it's called.
Departure,
yeah.
So what do you end up with?
I ended up with 12 state, 42 federal.
All
but the federal
put
and the
together.
state ran concurrently, so 42. And I did every second of the 42.
Why'd you do every second?
Because I got in trouble again in...
You just can't stay out of trouble.
I have stayed out of trouble for a few years now.
That's crazy.
Yeah, I went to Sheridan, Oregon, and when I got there were some people here from... they have different cliques in there, you know that. So they had
cars,
the 509 car, which is the Tri-City. Everyone from Tri-Cities was there, and they knew me, and they said, hey, you want to get back into... Yeah, I mean, I might as well. So I got back into dealing those pills in prison. So I was able to open up like a casino at night, and it's camp. So, I mean...
They sent you to a camp?
Oh, they sent me... Yeah, I had no prior. I had no violence, no guns, nothing. So if you ever look... I don't know if you've been to Sheridan, but everybody knows Sheridan. The camp's right there. On the other side is a public park. So people they throw stuff in the dumpster, and then we'd have the Pisces. They would do runs because they're fast, and we'd pay them $100 a run. So they would go, anything threw in the dumpster, they'd go out there and get it. I don't know how they got out there, but they did it. And they bring it back. So we had cologne, and we had hair dye, and we had everything that anybody filled out a list of what they wanted, we would buy them. And then liquor was, the peanut butter jars full was $60 for vodka or whatever. And but so I had 2 cell phones in there, and one day I got caught with the cell phone. The rep, the white rep, had the phone looking at Facebook, and he couldn't see something on there. He couldn't find it because he was pretty high with me. We just finished getting high, and I grabbed the phone from him, and I said, it's right here. And as he did, that cop walked in and saw me. I was like, I could have given it back to him, but everyone was watching me. I would have got my ass beat. I know that. So I just put the phone in my pocket, and they came up to me and said, hey, can we search it? And they searched me, and they gave me 300 series shots. I got cell phone. I had a plasma lighter and a USB cord. Yeah. So I got 300 series shotgun sent to the hole. That was 4 months I was in camp.
What happened to the cartel? Did they just disappear after you got arrested? Were they worried?
Everyone that I know, except for the people in Mexico, were arrested. Okay. I saw the main guy I dealt with, I saw actually flying into Portland, into Sheridan on Con Air. As I was getting off, he was down there. And I guess he got kicked out. He was getting sent out. So I was able to come down. I sat next to him, and we had the black box on us and stuff like that. And we rapped, and he goes, "What'd you get?" And I told him, and I said, "What about you?" And he got 17 years. They got him as the head and all that stuff. And he said, "Good looking out." He said, "But keep your mouth shut." I said, "Yep." He said, "All right, see you on the outside." I said, "Yeah, one day."
How'd your dad feel about your prison sentence?
Oh, they were pissed. But at that time, I was using too, so I was using hard. So I know when I was locked up, at that time, every pill that I sold, I was able to get 3 free, pretty much. So you can use it to sell and make extra money, or you can use it. And I was so paranoid. I had so many drivers driving me. Because every time I drove, I got pulled over. So I had 6 drivers, and I was just paying pills, because everyone was also addicted to those things. And I remember I was probably on 50 pills a day myself at that time, because years went by smoking that. And I was sitting in a drunk tank because we got arrested. When I finally got arrested, I was taking a shower at Motel 6 because I heard they were after me, and I was trying to get a shower and get out of there. And my son's like, I think there's feds outside. I'm like, no. And he's like, so I call my buddy who's coming to pick us up. He goes, I can't get there. He goes, the whole street's blocked over with feds. I'm like, wow, it must be another big bus because there's many buses in that area. So I walk out on the balcony and I'm on my phone. I'm like, holy cow, it's copters? Yeah, it's pretty big. I wonder who they're getting. And a Dodge truck pulled up and I heard it stop. And he looked up and put it in reverse and peeled back. I'm like, what? Going on? I see him go to this it's called the Great Wall of China. It was a a diner. And he sat there and the visor went down. I saw binoculars come up. I said, hey, bro, I think they're after me. And he's like, nah, you're not that big, bro. I'm like, shut up, stupid. I said, I'm looking at the guy right now. He's like, nah. I'm like, well, I said, you can't get here. I said, I'll come meet you. I'll come hop the fence. There's a car store right next door. I'll come find you. All right, so I go in there real quick. I start to do my hair, and I see a gun come around the corner in the mirror. And someone says, Polis. I'm like, yeah, can you come out here? I'm like, can you come in here? He said, not right now. So I came out, and there was a U.S. Marshal sitting there with a gun. I was like, he's like, we got, I think 3 minutes and something seconds until we have the warrant approved. I said, what's up? And he's like, well, we're here to arrest you. I said, for what? He's like, you're a drug dealer. I said, no, I'm not. He's like, yeah, you are. I said, no. He said, you're going to come, and I'm looking around. He's like, I promise you, there's no way out. And I was on the top floor of the hotel. So finally I was smoking a cigarette. I'm just chain smoking, and I go to flick the cigarette. I said, back away. So he backed away, and I went to flick out. Another guy grabbed my arm and pulled me around and arrested me. I looked down, and everyone's arrested. He had like 10 people. I go, who are all these people? He goes, they're with you. I said, they're not with me. I go, who's this guy? He goes, that's your son. I said, that's not my son. He goes, yes, it is. I go, bro, I'm already arrested. It's not my son. He's like, well, it doesn't matter. Guilty by association, let the judge figure it out. So they arrested people on that top floor. I don't know who they were. I know me and my son did get arrested. So when I went to jail, they put me in a dry tank. And you talk about my parents. Cop comes in. I'm dying because I'm withdrawing by now. And he says, you got to call your attorney. And he hands me a number. I said, I don't have an attorney. I just got arrested. He goes, you have an attorney? I said, nope. Hands me a number, and I call it. It's my mother. And she's like, you think you're smart, huh? I'm like, Mom, how did you get them to call me? She's like, you're freaking smart. Your son's in there with you, too. Big guy, huh? You really big son. I just hung up. I said, take me back. I said, dude, that was my mother. He's like, who's your attorney? I said, it was my attorney. I don't know how she convinced a cop to call me. But yeah, I was in that drunk tank. I didn't get my mugshot for 8 days. I got lost in the mix because my son was on the floor and I crawled up and I was hurting so bad. And days went by until the cop thought I was dead because I just had throw up in my mouth. Worst withdrawals ever in my life. And I know it took me out. And after about a couple weeks, I didn't feel better I'll be honest, these withdrawals lasted probably mentally and physically 8 months. I had restless legs for so long I couldn't sleep. I never dreamt. I don't remember the last time I dreamt at that time, because you're always on. Sometimes you don't sleep. You just do what you got to do. But I remember clearing up. I remember my focus starting to come back, and I started. I mean, when I got better, I still looking for drugs. People keister stuff and come in all the time, And now they have that new machine that you sit on, and they have the X-ray on the button. And they're like, so if you get it in, it's even more money now. I'm like, great,
What happened to your son?
After, I think he got 3 months. because he had a pending arrest or a pending warrant for not going to court. So he got let out, and he was unfortunate. And I don't feel. It was like, how could you do it to your son? It's like at that point in time, it's not like I introduced him to that world, but I sure as hell didn't deter him from doing it. You know, I know at a point in time when the pills were so expensive, people were cutting pills at that time. They would take the Mexis and they cut them with benzos and Xanax, and they put blue in there just to get the price. They can make more money because it was expensive to buy them, and people were ODing. So he was already addicted to it. So I just and he would never leave me alone. You know, wherever I'd go, he wants to go with me. So I'm like, I'm just going to keep you alive. You know, and is that the right decision? Obviously not. I don't know what I could have done to stop him. You know, he made up his own mind, but I do feel, you know, partly responsible for the life he lived. But now he's clean. He's been clean for 6 years. He's doing good. He's in the union now. So both my kids are doing good. My youngest son left at the time because he said, Dad, this lifestyle is not conducive to me going to school. He goes, you got cartel people driving me to school and babysitting. And he goes, I just need to concentrate on school. This is too much for me. So I do feel responsible for that.
What happens after you get kicked out of the camp? You go to a low or a medium?
I went to a low, but before that, I know just before I got sentenced, my mind started to get clear, and I watched the same. I think I told you since I watched the same people. They leave and they come within 2-3 weeks. They come right back, and I was like, dude, what are you doing? Why do you keep coming back? And he's like, there's nothing out there. I went to a house and a recovery house, and I come back in and I'm like, there's nothing out there. They don't have any help out there for you. So I know at one point in time I was approved for pretrial release. They said if you can find a loved one, family member, or the last one was a clean and sober house that was like a halfway house type thing that would be responsible for you. Maybe on a thing you can get out because you have no record. But I couldn't find a damn person that would want me. Every time I asked, like, I can't afford that kind of, that kind of stuff around my house. You got cartel, you got drugs, you people look. I'm like, man, whatever. So I do know I tried clean and sober house at the time, and the person wouldn't answer the phone. So, at that point in time, I was feeling bad. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna start my own recovery home. And like, Pete, you're a drug dealer. I said, yeah, but I said, a drug dealer is just an entrepreneur. He's just an entrepreneur in another area. I said, I still was creative. And I said, dude, no one, in order to get funding, you need to get with Department of Corrections. They're not going to approve. You're a freaking drug. You got federally indicted. I'm like, I don't care. I'm still going to do it. So I literally wrote a whole business plan, and front page back, what I'm going to have. I said, I'm going to make sure that people have wraparound services. I'm going to make sure that we have everything equipped so people don't have to come back to jail again. Whatever they need, I'm going to get them. In my mind, it sounded amazing. So I wrote that all down, and I named my partner at the time. He ran a clean and sober house at the time in Washington, and he was the person I was trying to call to get out on pretrial release, but he wouldn't answer the phone because he probably recognized the number and it's coming from jail. He would come in and he would interview people right when they're about to get out to move into their clean and sober housing, because he was approved by DOC. So I said, I'm going to make him my partner. And I said, he is not going to partner with you. I said, well, I believe he will. So I left it like that. Talked about it right before I got released, right before I got sentenced and shipped off. He did come into our tank to interview 2 people, and the chaplain asked him to speak to me because he said, there's something different about Pete. Like, just go see this guy and tell him what you think. So when he came in to see me for the first time, I said, dude, you're a cop. He said, no, I'm not. He said, this is my name. I was like, bullshit. I don't believe you. He's like, I promise you. I said, you're going to trip out. And I ran to my cell, and I handed him a business plan with his name in it. He's like, why is my name in here? I was like, good plan, huh? He's like, yeah, it is, but why is my name? I don't know you. I'm like, I know. That makes it even more of a God thing. I said, just trust me. He says, do you need help? I said, no, I'm going to prison. I'm going to go for another 3 years. I was already in the 16 months at the time. I said, I got to go for 3 years. He goes, all right, what can I do for you? I said, when I get out, give me a place to stay, keep that business plan, and let's do something great. He's like, all right. And we said goodbye, and that was it. So when I went to camp, I did call him on the cell phone, and he says, "You're out? Why don't you tell me?" I said, "I'm not out." He's like, "Do not tell me you're in that bathroom on that cell phone." I said, "Yeah." He goes, "P, you're gonna get in trouble." I said, "I got this, bro." He goes, "Famous last words, huh?" I said, "I got this." He goes, "When did you get out?" I said, 16 months, but I need a release address. So he gave me one, and I gave it to my counselor. And that was the last time I spoke with him until I got out. But from Sheridan, I went to the Hole. COVID hit. I stayed in the Hole for a while. I don't know how many months I stayed in there. Terrible. 2-person cell, 2 by 5 feet. That's it. That's the only walking space you had. And from there, I got sent back to Pahrump, Nevada, for the hub, the transfer facility they have out there. And I stayed there for 7 months. And then they shipped me to Victorville. I stayed in Victorville for about a month in Victorville. And then they shipped me to Lompoc. And I spent the rest, the last 11 months I had left in Lompoc.
And I'm assuming you call this guy as soon as you get out of prison and make what you manifested happen.
Yeah, I did. Yeah, I called him up and said, "Hey, where do I go again?" And he gives me the address. And I did not know that there was adjacent houses on the corner. 2 houses that were that both were covering them. I walk into the wrong house and use his name. I said, "Hey, Jason told me I have a room. He's got no beds." I said, "Listen, man, Jason said you'd have a bed for me." I still think I'm all that. And he's like, "Go sleep on the freaking couch. Couch it until the bed opens up." I said, "Couch?" So he said, "Yeah." And then the next day, a bunk bed opened up. I said, "Bro, I'm 50-something years old, man. I can't be on a bunk bed." And he's like, "I don't know what's going on." He says, "But this is what you have right now." So about a week passed before I actually got with him. And he's like, we made a plan to go to lunch and talk about it. And he's like, "Hey, I'm here in the driveway." I said, "Bro, I'm in the driveway right now." He's like, "What house did you go to?" I said, "The green one." He's like, "You went to the wrong house. They had a bed for you?" I said, "No, they told me to go on the couch." He said, "I had a bed at the other place for you." But it wound up working out. So we went to lunch and talked about it. And he said, "You have a big uphill battle." He goes, "You got federal time. You got 3 years probation." He says, "They're going to be down. You got to pee. You got a big road ahead. But let's start, doing the groundwork." So we just started with the groundwork and got, everything filed, all the papers filed, the 501c3 filed, and just built a good foundation before we ever came up with the first house. Obviously I'm right out of prison. I had $40 to my name, and so I had a few friends that were there for me when I got out, and one of them, I asked if he can help me invest and buy a house. And when everything got going, we got the license, we got registered, everything going along. I still don't know anything about it, but we got our first house, and I wound up doing a lot of remodeling in that. And it's my first baby. I couldn't believe it. Going to treatment, no one believed me in treatment. I went there, and the counselors that was there said, "You're in denial, and you just need to confess that you're an addict." I said, "Well, I don't believe I was." And they said, "No, you are." They said, "You have to go to AA or NA." I'm not going to go to any of those. They said, "If you don't go, you're not going to graduate." I said, "If you don't graduate me, I'll sue you for discrimination." They said, "On what basis?" I said, "Because I'm going to church and my Bible study, and you're saying that that's not good enough, and that can't get me through because I have to." They said, "What do you have so bad about NA?" Now, have you ever been to NA? Mm-mm. They make you stand up every day and confess you're an addict. I mean, it works for people, but I'm a very big confession person. Everything I say seems to come to pass. So I'm not going to stand up every day and say, "My name is Pete Pauls, I'm an addict." I'm not. I used to be, but I believe that God died on the cross, Jesus died on the cross, and old things have passed away and all things become new. So I'm a new creation. So I'm not an addict anymore. And they said, "Well, if you don't do that, we're not going to graduate you." So I wound up going to the head and talking to him, and I told him my whole testimony and my faith, and he's like, "Man, you are like dynamite. You're exciting." I said, "Thanks." And he goes, "Well, I'll switch you over to another person and see what happens." I wound up graduating in 2 weeks. And it's funny because that same person, that same organization that I deal with now, and it's been about three and a half years since I've been out, and it's going good. Everything came to pass, and I got 5 houses now. 28 people have graduated. I got a 200-person waiting list. Seasons Housing is the name of it. It was named Seasons Housing because of in Ecclesiastes in the Bible. There's a season for everything. Did I plan on becoming a drug dealer? I plan on becoming a baseball player. Pastor. I didn't say I'm just going to detour and become a drug dealer and go to prison. But
You've had a lot of acts in your life.
Yeah.
I will say that.
Yeah.
How's your relationship with your dad now?
Good. My mom passed, as I said, but she got to see. When I first met my wife, now I didn't know, but my wife wrote a letter to my mom, introducing herself and letting, "Hey, peace, doing good, da da da." And it's like, my mom wouldn't tell you mother effer. I'm not talking. You're gonna hate you, because you embarrassed the family. It was like that, and so it was the buffer. And but through time, she got to see that I'm doing better. She got to see that seasons took off. She got to see me help people. She got to see me start to grow and heal. And then we went to see her a couple times. And so I was able to see her. She got to meet my family now. I have another son, third son now. And it's just cool because she didn't go to the grave, see me as a piece of crap, like she said. But I really was, because I went off the path a little bit, but I was able to rebound and come back.
What do you want your kids to learn from your story? If they're listening to this, one day and they see this all on screen, what do you want them to take away from it?
What am I going to give them? I mean, that anything is possible. I mean, I believe everybody is born to do something great. We all have, like, I really live by this quote that you never know when your detour will lead you to your destiny. And we all have detours. You had a detour yourself. Did you think you were going to be here? Did you think you had to go through that to get here?
No, I thought it was going to turn out so much differently than it has, and I'm so grateful.
Yeah.
Now I'd say prison's the best thing that ever happened to me. I mean, it used to
100%.
hold me back from doors opening, and now prison is what opens the doors for me.
Yeah. And I'm learning that now, and that's why I appreciate your podcast so much, because a lot of people, there's a stigma that people in prison always go. I mean, addicts and people in prison, they think they're always going to stay that way. The recidivism rate's crazy. People that come out and succeed is very few and far between, It's like, I know they said one of the marshals that arrested me, I saw him one day and I pulled up behind him real quick. And he gets out, Polis, what the hell are you doing? And we got to talk, and he's like, dude, you're like the only person in 30 years that has come out and done something like productive. Not done good, but productive. He said, good. Can I take a selfie with you? I was like, the last time I remember that, taking my picture, but it felt good. And I know that's how you feel, because you're helping people. I'm trying to get to where you are. I'm trying to get into prisons, because I believe that's where change can happen.
Yeah.
I thank the guy who arrested me. But, when they see me and they're like, Polo? I'm like, yeah. They go, what are you doing? I said, man, thank you. And they, for what? I said, I wasn't going to stop doing what I was doing. 100%. I wouldn't have stopped using. I wouldn't have stopped selling unless you forced me. But so I believe jail, I hate to say jail is a good thing, but it was a turning point for me. You can't get out. You're stuck. You have to deal with your demons. You have to deal with yourself. You have to look yourself in the mirror and see, wow, I am a piece of crap. Probably should change, because I don't want my kids to remember me this way. Like, hey, wasn't your dad the guy that got arrested? Went to prison and keeps doing it. Yeah, he's doing good. I don't want them to remember for that. So, I mean, I want my kids to look at me and say, hey, look what my dad did. So anytime they run into a situation that maybe they trip and fall, they can look back and say, hey, my dad tripped and fell, thought he hit rock bottom, realized there was a freaking cellar door, and it even goes further. I mean, it sucks when everyone turns your back. And that's what I had in prison. Everyone turned their back on me. And you just realize, hey, I suck. Like, I do suck. And no wonder why no one wants to be around me. It was all about me, So I can give back now. It's nice to go to drug court for this reason, to watch guys in my houses and girls in my houses graduate. It's nice. We just got awarded 32 beds in a new detox center that the county's building. They'll have medical detox, inpatient, outpatient, and then like transitional housing, and we'll have the housing portion of it. And I think it should be that way. Like, it gives people hope. Like, all right, this guy was in prison and my partner was in jail. So, but now these guys got this. So maybe it can happen, you know?
Definitely. Well, Pete, thanks so much for coming on the show today, man.
Absolutely.
You told your story brilliantly. It was a great conversation, and I'm so happy for your success now, and I wish you the best in the future.
Thanks, Ian. Appreciate it.